The Strongest in Dragon Ball series here on Geekdom 101 explores the feats and abilities and powers of the strongest characters in the Dragon Ball franchise. And there's one character that I've wanted to talk about for a very long time, but I haven't really found the words to get to him yet, and that's Future Trunks. Future Trunks may have as much potential as even Gohan does, and we've seen flashes of his brilliance, not just in Dragon Ball Z, but even more so in Dragon Ball Super. So today, on this edition of The Strongest in Dragon Ball, I'm going to break down the incredibly impressive abilities and feats that we've seen Future Trunks implement in the series, not just in Dragon Ball Z, but also Super. There might not be a limit to this kid's power, so if you're a fan of Trunks or just like really strong characters, stay tuned. Remember the awesome 1977 original Star Wars poster? Well, I thought, wouldn't that be awesome if we have a Dragon Ball version? So I made it. Brand new merch to the Geekdom 101 store. The Future Trunks Hope of the Future merch line. This is one of the most beautiful pieces of art we've ever had here. And now you can get it on a poster, on a shirt, on a hoodie. I love it. Future Trunks with the Spirit Sword trying to save the future. I've done merch for so many different Dragon Ball characters, all of people's favorites, but not Trunks until today. The link is in the description for a limited time. Do not miss out on this one. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this topic, there's a couple of points that I want to make real quick. We're going to be focusing mostly on Future Trunks in this video because he's the older Trunks, he's the more experienced Trunks, he's the more interesting one, and we see more of him fighting in the series. But because of Trunks from both timelines having the same biology, what I say about Future Trunks could also apply to Kid Trunks. The big difference is, of course, that Trunks from the future had a very, very hard life, growing up without a father in a post-apocalyptic world where 17 and 18 are destroying everything. He had it tough. He had a rough upbringing, whereas Kid Trunks has both his parents, goes to amusement parks, his grandfather's the richest man on the earth, so yeah, not quite the same life. But theoretically, if present time Trunks were to go through the same training as Future Trunks, they would have probably the same amount of power relatively. So I want to get that out of the way now because I don't want there to be a debate about which Trunks. Trunks from the future gave us a lot more to work with. Let's go back and start with Dragon Ball Z. One thing to keep in mind when discussing the potential power of Trunks is that he is very similar biologically to Gohan. Gohan is the son of a Saiyan and a human. He's the product of that combination of DNA. Same thing with Trunks. His mother is Bulma, his father is Vegeta. We know that Vegeta from birth was labeled a super elite. We know that Vegeta is a fighting genius. We know that Vegeta has the potential to do most of the things Goku can do, if not all, depending on what your perspective is on Vegeta. So because of that, Trunks should, in theory, have the same amount of potential as Gohan. And as you know, based on what we saw in the Cell Saga and what we saw in Dragon Ball Super Superhero, Gohan may have the most potential out of anybody and can leapfrog over various characters just by tapping into his rage and unlocking new transformations. And we see this not only in Dragon Ball Z, but also Dragon Ball Super. The key difference as to why Gohan was able to excel beyond Trunks is, of course, because of their fathers. That's not to say that Goku has a significantly higher power than Vegeta, even though for a lot of the series he does. It's not about that. It's the fact that when the two father-son duos went into the Room of Spirit and Time to get stronger, Goku was coaching Gohan. He was with Gohan. He was teaching Gohan. He was pushing Gohan to the limits. But based on statements made by Trunks and Vegeta, that did not happen with them. Vegeta kind of did his own thing, and Trunks did his own thing. So because of that, they didn't really have that bonding moment like Goku and Gohan did, and so Trunks was unable to really get to the highest levels he could. We already know that Trunks was able to unlock Super Saiyan before Goku and Vegeta when it comes to his age. He was much younger when he unlocked it, whether you talk about the history of Trunks TV special, the story of Trunks manga chapter, or even what we saw from Kid Trunks, who was able to do it before he was even 8 years old. That to me is very impressive, and it shows the incredible potential of Trunks. Now, like I said, him and Vegeta didn't really bond. Meanwhile, Goku was teaching Gohan about the different Super Saiyan grades, with their goal being to ultimately surpass and ascend beyond the boundaries of Super Saiyan. So, when Vegeta and Trunks left the Room of Spirit and Time, they went to go confront Cell, whom at that point was in his second form. And this is where we see Vegeta debut Super Saiyan Grade 2, otherwise known as Ascended Saiyan for people who are following along with the dub. I did an entire video on this form and went into every detail of it in the transformation guide, so check that out. And speaking of which, so Trunks was able to achieve Grade 2, just like Vegeta, but he was able to go beyond even that into Grade 3. Now, Grade 3 I also did a video on, and I explained that Grade 3 was the huge, muscular, incredibly powerful form that uses up a lot of energy, but it's also very, very slow, and that's ultimately its drawback. And one of the interesting things that Trunks says is that Vegeta was able to achieve Grade 3, but he was smart enough to know that that form provided a slowdown. He knew that form would cause problems with actual combat, and so Vegeta chose not to use that form, which shows that he is much more experienced and much more intelligent than his son from the future. However, Vegeta did not share that information with Trunks. Meanwhile, in the Room of Spirit and Time, we literally see Goku explaining to Gohan in the very same episode, in the same time frame, that there's other in-between forms, but that's not where they want to hit. That would, of course, lead us to Super Saiyan Grade 4, which is full power Super Saiyan, and that's what Goku and Gohan used when they left the Room of Spirit and Time. But poor Trunks didn't know what the heck he was doing, didn't really understand his own body, and as a result of that, yes, he got powerful without question, but he was too slow. And it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you cannot hit your opponent, it is a waste of muscle mass. It's very similar to how it is in real life. If you put on too much muscle mass and you're a pro fighter, it is going to affect your speed. That's not even an argument, because we've seen it happen when fighters in boxing and MMA move up in weight. So Toriyama used a very great example of real life sports science applying into the fictional world of Dragon Ball. Another thing I love about that man is that he was highly intelligent. But nevertheless, Trunks showed that with a little bit of training, he could be an absolute monster. After the Cell Saga, though, we did not see Trunks again until Dragon Ball Super. And now in Dragon Ball Super, Trunks returned to the past to get Goku's help against Goku Black, but he had a few surprises up his sleeve that people were not expecting based on the time that had passed since Trunks had gone back to the future. What I'm referring to is the fact that Trunks now in Dragon Ball Super was a behemoth and even stronger than anybody expected. I think the most impressive thing about Trunks in Dragon Ball Super is not the blue hair. Don't even get me started on that. Don't even get me started. I did a whole video about that years ago when this first happened. What I'm talking about is the fact that Trunks was able to unlock Super Saiyan 2 on his own in the future, and we see him fighting Goku, and Goku's in Super Saiyan 3, and Vegeta outright states that, he outright says it, that Trunks in Super Saiyan 2 is stronger than Goku in Super Saiyan 3. It's kind of like in Battle of Gods where Vegeta momentarily surpassed Goku in SS2 because of the anger he had from Beerus slapping Bulma. Kind of like that. You can still overcome higher levels of Super Saiyan if you're very, very strong. But Trunks also did not know how to use Super Saiyan 3 at that point, and that secret still remains in Goku's brain. Nevertheless, Trunks being able to do that is a crazy feat. But wait, there's more. As the arc progresses, Trunks gets stronger and stronger through training and by exploiting Zenkai and his various battles with Goku Black and Zamasu, to the point where he powers up and unlocks a new transformation we've never seen before called Super Saiyan Ikari, or Super Saiyan Rage. I did a whole transformation guide on this form, and I said everything that I knew about it, but there really isn't much because to this day, it has not been explained. We can just assume that, like Gohan Beast, it's like a secret power inside of Trunks that he was never able to really tap into until now, because that's kind of how it is with every character in Dragon Ball and every new transformation. It's just hiding there until somebody taps into it. Either way, I'm not going to sit here and discuss the writing being lazy, even though it does come off like that quite a bit. But I am going to tell you that this form seems to be on the level, if not slightly above Super Saiyan Blue, at least during this time of the series with regards to Goku and Vegeta. But that's still not all. Trunks' most, I would say, impressive thing that he did, man, there's a few. Knocking off Frieza, killing Cell. He also killed Dabura in the future timeline. We saw it in the flashback. So the fact that Trunks killed both Cell and Frieza, that's just that right there is a good notch count, right? Just that. But there's more. At the end of the arc, the anime version, Trunks is somehow able to manifest Genki health energy in the same way that Goku does with the Genki Dama, aka the Spirit Bomb, and is able to make what's been called the Spirit Sword or the Spirit Bomb Sword, which he used to cut Zamasu in half. So somehow Trunks figured out some way to gather up Genki, create this sword, compete with Merge Zamasu, who just an episode prior to this is competing against Vegito Blue of all things. So that means that Trunks is relative to Vegito Blue. Are you serious right now? And Trunks was able to do that at the end of the arc, which is still kind of a head scratcher to this day, because it's like, who would have thought he could ever be that strong? So obviously Trunks receiving some kind of special moment in the same way that Gohan did in Superhero would be something that would make logical sense based on Dragon Ball logic. Obviously, there is no question that you could argue about the laziness or lack of creativity when it comes to this concept in Super, but it's one that we see time and time again lately, and it just is what it is. This video's job is to convince you and explain to you why Trunks is one of the strongest characters in Dragon Ball, and really, in many ways, has surpassed Goku and Vegeta, at least in that arc. I'm not saying that Trunks can compete with Ultra Instinct or Ultra Ego, but let's be real here. If we see Trunks again in the future, if he comes back to the main timeline, for all intents and purposes, this dude may have another top secret powerful form that rivals Gohan Beast. That is the strongest in Dragon Ball, future Trunks. If you like this video, check these out as well.